Today is Thursday, October 12th. It's been 6 days Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th. That was the day, like never before for the Israeli Jews. They lost lives for the first time in mass number since the Holocaust. And we are here at the Israeli Embassy in Ankara with Deputy Chief of Mission Nadav Markman. Mr. Markman, thank you so much for reaching out to us.
Thank you.
And giving this opportunity and accepting us here at the embassy.
Thank you for
How
coming.
are you holding up? Is any of your immediate family members impacted by this horrible event?
These are very difficult days for the people of Israel. Like you mentioned, civilians have been massacred, brutally tortured and killed by terrorists from Gaza Strip, Hamas and other organizations. Over 1,000 terrorists came into Israeli cities, towns, and started butchering people and slaughtering them. They took a lot of kidnapped people into Gaza. There's a large amount of people who were abducted. They burned people alive. They shot over 5,000 missiles at Israeli civilians. We're talking about, they're not aiming at military even. They are shooting at our cities and towns and people. My family are okay. Luckily at the moment, they are holding on strong. The Israeli people are very strong. We will never surrender to the terrorists. But again, this is a time where we must deal with the terrorists. We must finish off all the military capabilities of Hamas, and we have to get back our people who were kidnapped into Gaza.
And for that, Haberturk reported late last night that under the guidance of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Turkey started negotiations with Hamas to rescue the Israeli captives. Can you confirm that, and can you give any further information about that?
Unfortunately, I cannot give any information on that at the moment, but there are several countries who are talking with the regional actors, including Hamas. At the moment, Israel is not dealing with talking to Hamas. This is an ISIS-like terror organization, and the things that are done, some of them I can't even pronounce and say with my own words. At the moment, the Israeli people, and the only thing we are concentrated in is bringing back our people and completely destroying the terror capabilities of this horrific terror organization.
Let me try to understand what you just said. So, do you confirm that Ankara is talking to Hamas to rescue the Israeli captives or not?
You know, I speak on behalf of the Israeli government. I don't confirm anything regarding the Turkish government.
Okay.
We do have a close dialogue with the Turkish senior officials, and we do appreciate our bilateral relations. I cannot say any more than that at the moment, sorry.
Okay, I understand. And so how do you find the Turkish government's response to this attack so far?
You know, I'm sure they understand. They saw the videos, they saw the footage that comes from Israel, and they understand that these horrific things done by Hamas and the other organizations are simply unacceptable. We've also conveyed our messages to the Turkish government. Our President Herzog talked on the phone with President Erdogan, and they had a positive and important conversation.
Can you give us any information about the content of that conversation? How did it go?
Again, as I said, it's an important conversation that has to be done. President Herzog visited Turkey last year, and I'm sure the two sides understand each other. I'm sure that the Turkish government understands the Israeli stand. And again, we are at war at the moment. So I think we are focusing on eliminating the terror threat over Israel, which is existing at the moment, not only from Gaza, but from other areas. And the most important thing, that our civilians and the people of Israel will be safe.
Now, I hear President Erdogan with a different tone this time around. If it were to be before 2020, I would have expected him to be more emotional in his reactions. This time around, he sounds more reasoned and calm. Do you have the same perception about him?
You know, I'm not a commentator of the president's things or any other senior official. The only thing I could say is that we do have an important dialogue between our governments, and the whole world is seeing what's happening there, not just the Turkish
But
president.
that important dialogue has, come into being after two breakups in the, diplomatic representation of the two countries, right? So this is the second attempt to normalize relations with Israel. And it seems that whatever, the two governments have decided, what I do observe is that President Erdogan is sticking with the agreement, and his rhetoric has significantly changed compared to 2020. Would you agree with that?
Again, I don't do comments on other leaders' speeches towards Israel, especially not at the moment. You have to understand, this is a difficult time for us. We are engaged in war with multiple terror organizations. The only important thing at the moment is to defeat the terrorism, and I want to focus on that. I want to call to our viewers here and to tell them the Israeli people is in very difficult days. The thing that the terrorists have done to the Israeli public are unimaginable. ISIS organization use the same techniques, but this time we're talking about over 1,200 Israelis who are dead. Most of them are ordinary civilians. We're talking about missiles being shot. We're talking about hurting of women, children, elderly, men, even pets, burning of houses. I'm sorry, but I'm a bit, devastated because of all the things being done, and I'm sure you understand me.
I do understand you, dear Nada, but and I'd like to extend my sincere condolences to you and to those who lost their loved ones. But let me, take it, to the way how the Turkish public is also perceiving this. Let me ask that question to you first. How do you think that the Turkish public is reacting to these incidents?
I've been living in Turkey for over a year now, and there are a lot of similarities between the Turkish people and the Israeli people. Culture-wise, we are in the same Mediterranean area, even the food and the culture and the people. I know that the Turkish people have been through a lot of terror attacks in the past. They understand what terror is. They know the feeling. And therefore, I really want to talk to their hearts and say, this is what we are going through at the moment. Thousands of people hurt, dead, kidnapped by a terror organization. This is a large-scale, extreme terror, brutal and cruel. I'm sure the Turkish people sees this and understands this.
Well, they see other things too, like they see Gaza being the open prison. They see Palestinians being humiliated for far too long. They see the lost opportunities for the two-state solution many, many times, and that has only brought more killing, death, trauma, and hopelessness, all the negative things that, brings a human to I don't know what. I mean, it's really very difficult. It makes our hearts heavy to watch it. Now, as I opened this conversation, I didn't talk about the Israeli reaction to it. But as the Israeli reaction to this attack started, the Turkish public also focuses on the killings on the Palestinian side. And we are confused. I don't think that the general public in Turkey would not wish anyone harm. But the way how the Palestinians have been pushed to a corner, and the way how the Israeli officials now talk about them as animals, as people that are not human, it's making us feel, really what? I mean, it's a very unnerving feeling. Do you also understand this heaviness in Turkey and elsewhere around the world, that we do also care about the Palestinians?
I understand, and I want to say that I regret for every loss of life, of every human being, Israeli, Palestinian, anywhere in the world. No Israeli official has called them non-humans. Everyone are humans. In fact, the Israeli army is the most humane and is doing extreme efforts to prevent hurting of civilians. But we must remember something. The Hamas regime in Gaza has been there for over 15 years, preventing its own people from basic rights, developing their neighborhoods, their homes, their lives. They chose a terror organization to rule them. And this terror organization is the real reason they are suffering at the moment. What's the war that is going on in Israel is not between the Israel and the Palestinian people. No. It's between the terror organization of Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and others who are coming into Israel, killing people, doing extreme things, brutal things, kidnapping Holocaust survivors into Gaza. Can you imagine that? Of course, we want the best for the people of the region. And that's why the state of Israel has been engaging in coming closer to our allies. In the Abraham Accords, we got peace with United Arab Emirates, with Bahrain. We come closer to Morocco, to Sudan. We want to expand this to other countries like Saudi Arabia.
Let's talk about this, but before we get there, what we do see is that when Israel attacks in Gaza, there is no way that you can only target Hamas terrorists, right? Civilians are also being targeted and that they're being killed. This is just, really difficult to watch it. It's been 20 years since what? I mean, since, we have been 23 years since we are in the 21st century. One would have wished that we would have peace and harmony and that we would only see happy days. But it's not coming to Palestine. And as it's not coming to Palestine, you're also, each time around, the drama is hitting Israel in such way that I know that you like to, talk about the Israeli people with deep humanity, but it doesn't, help the Israelis to show their good faces to the, global, community, to the world community, because there is the Palestinian killing that's going on for decades, right? We're having difficulty to understand it, Nada. Help us understand the, way that we are talking about this incident. You immediately brought up the Abrahamic Accords, the potential normalization with Saudi Arabia. Maybe they targeted it. I don't know. You are going to answer to that part. But for the civilians like myself, it doesn't matter. People are constantly being killed. When is it going to come to an end? Are we writing the two-state solution off the map? What's happening?
Allow me to correct you.
Do that.
Israeli security authorities would never target civilians, and they only target terrorists, armed terrorists. But the fact that Hamas is taking civilians and using them as human shields in Gaza, okay? Who is using the civilians? It's clear that Hamas is doing this. It's clear that they use homes of people to hide rockets underneath. It's clear that they are hiding under hospitals and mosques, which they know that Israel would not attack. They're making a cynical, sad use of their own population and civilians in Gaza against Israel. But we have our morals, and we will stick to them. And our principles say we don't hurt civilians. It's true that sometimes when you are engaged in war, also civilians are affected. And again, I'd like to offer my personal, sincere regret for any civilian who is being hurt. But you just called what Hamas did in south of Israel an incident. This is no incident, excuse me. It's a massacre. What they did there, and I don't know if you've seen the footage, but they came to a party of youngsters in the south, and they butchered 300 people there. And they were chasing them and taking them on motorbikes back to Gaza.
On the
This is a
what I
massacre.
said, and, hear it back again. Well, I'm not taking it light. This was horrible. And I have friends in Israel. One lost her daughter.
I'm
That's
sorry.
really horrible.
I'm sorry to hear.
And we have two Turkish citizens, one dead, one, you reported this morning that you don't know whereabouts.
Missing.
Missing. And so everyone is being impacted by it. But as you're talking about it, what do you want the Turkish public opinion to get from you?
Turkish people are intelligent, they are smart, they read the news, they see what's happening. They know we are dealing with an extremely dangerous terror organization. I want to be clear on one thing. We are going to annihilate and destroy the military capabilities of this organization. I am personally sad to see on Turkish social media ordinary people supporting Hamas like it's some kind of freedom organization or freedom movement. Excuse me, but freedom movements don't torture people, they don't drag them on the streets, they don't rape, and they don't behead people. But Hamas does that. To me, it looks a lot more like ISIS, and even worse than any type of freedom.
But do you understand the trap that the civilians are in now? The ones who care for Israeli people as well as the Palestinians. That each time anyone extends support to Israel, I mean, there is this dilemma. I mean, the Israeli politicians do say that this is our domestic politics, so you can't say a thing. On times of, massacres, I mean, this is the first time it's happening, but Israel has done operations in Gaza before, and there have been a lot of civilian, casualties. So people's hearts really go out. And people kinda, that's, what my gathering or what my perception is. Like, more we support Israel, it's interpreted in the Israeli government as a license to kill more Palestinians.
On
This
the contrary.
is the trap where the, civilians in Turkey and maybe around the world do find themselves, and that we are being ripped of our humanity. Do you empathize with this trap that we are in? That, people not being against Israel, Israeli people. On the contrary, wishing them well. But because of the way how the politics have played this out, and that there is no solution, this thing is only causing more deaths, and the support to Israel means, for many civilians, as if the Israeli government is asking them license to kill more.
Let me start off by mentioning the people to people and then talk about the governments. The Israeli and the Palestinian people are close. In many cities they are living together in same neighborhoods. I lived in Haifa. We have Arab Israelis, Palestinians, and Israeli Jews living together, and there are many more around Israel, all across, from the south to the north. People work together. They have joint businesses, trade. We supply them electricity, water, humanitarian aid. People don't talk about that, of course, in the media because it's not as interesting as people being killed in Israel. We have the potential to live together. And of course we want to have peace with, we want to have peace with the Palestinians. But as long as they are being governed by this horrific terror organization, how can you even talk to this organization? They don't want to talk. Let's be clear. They didn't kidnap over 100 Israelis and other foreign nationals to talk. They did it because they want to take over the state of Israel.
Does the Israeli government want to talk about the two-state solution?
Our prime minister was clear when he said it
What did he say?
multiple times. Of course, Israel wants to come to the negotiation table towards some kind of two-state solution. At the moment, is it possible? We are engaged in war. I think it's not time to talk about future negotiations. At this time, we have to eliminate the terror organization. By the way, this will be for the best also of the residents of Gaza. If Hamas's military activity would be stopped completely, then the people could breathe, they could, have businesses. And by the way, our government is doing a lot to develop mutual trade zones in every area of Palestinian residents. We are helping to support their economy. I mean, I think that your claims that the government wants to do the opposite are, some kind. I know a lot of people talk about this in the media, and I see the social media, but honestly, come to Israel. Watch it with your own eyes.
I've been to Israel, many times actually, and it's really heartbreaking to see what's happening now,
Yes.
and to see that there is no solution. But recently, since Saturday, I've seen on social media an exchange between one of the former and the late prime ministers of Turkey, Mesut Yilmaz, and then Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And according to this anecdote, shared on social media, Mr. Yilmaz visits Israel. He has this, tete-a-tete conversation with Benjamin Netanyahu, along with his, entourage. And Mr. Netanyahu asks the Turkish Prime Minister then to also give support to Hamas. He says it once, he says it twice, and then Yilmaz visits the Israeli president. This issue comes up. So there is a very interesting story as such. And then what the outcome of that story, as it's being shared on social media, is that Mr. Netanyahu also made a decision to support Hamas and to close one of his eyes to whatever they're doing, with the hope that they're going to kill the two-state solution. What do you make of such anecdotes being shared on social media?
To me, it sounds more like a conspiracy. Hamas is a terror organization for decades.
So do you say Mr. Netanyahu is a peace-loving prime minister?
I'm saying our prime minister does not support any terror organization. In fact, the cruel organization of Hamas, which footage we've seen, is doing everything it can to destroy the state of Israel. And, to say the word Hamas and peace in the same sentence would be completely wrong, especially in these difficult times. Our government is clear. Once the Palestinians are able to come to the negotiation table, we will be there to sit with them and talk to them. At the moment, there's no one on the other side.
Okay, how about the regional dynamics? What happens to Abrahamic Accords?
The Abraham Accords are a very positive process in the Middle East, in which Israel has come together and initiated diplomatic relations with a few important countries in the Middle East. These countries understand if they want prosperity in the future, if they want to, develop their international relations, if they want best for their people, then they should engage with Israel. And this is what they did. We see many countries coming and starting dialogues with Israel, opening embassies, increasing the trade. Of course, we also want this. We think that this will bring stability to the region. And this stability will also be enjoyed by the Palestinians. So in fact, we are operating here to bring countries together for the benefit of the region and all its citizens, including the Palestinian people, the Israeli people, and other countries.
Okay. How did they react so far?
Well, of course that these countries are in our region, they understand the dynamics, they know what terror looks like, and again, seeing the horrific things that Hamas did, I think no one can stay complacent to it. Our neighbors are also talking to us and also wanting to assist in calming down the situation. And I must tell you again, Israel will do anything in its power to destroy the military capabilities of Hamas and the other terror organization. This is the first point. Afterwards, we can talk to our allies, to our neighbors, to see how we improve this region together.
It's also been reported that Iran is behind this Hamas massacre, and while we have been talking about a potential ground operation into Gaza, I think many people in the region are also focusing on how Israel and the United States is going to react to Iran. Can you give us a guidance as to how to approach to this?
First of all, it's clear that the Iranian regime wants destabilization of the Middle East. Okay? It's clear that the Iranian regime is doing anything it can to destroy the state of Israel. It's funding terror organization. 90% of the military budget of Hamas, 93% is coming from Tehran. Palestinian Islamic Jihad is very well funded by Iran as well. They are training people. They are giving them weapons, or at least trying to send them weapons, which we are successfully stopping in the big majority of cases. It's clear that the Iranian regime is the most dangerous regime in the region at the moment as we speak. And even looking at their supreme leader's Twitter page, you would see that he shared a video from the massacre that Hamas did to Israeli ordinary civilians and was writing, how should I say, his best of his blessings to the Israeli people and to our government.
But don't you think that, I mean, forget about Iran, I know what you're referring to, but let me take a few steps back because, I mean, this is, for my YouTube channel, and it gives us the privilege to talk about things out of cuff too. Like, it's awful. There is no way to come to terms with what had happened. But then, I also, sometimes find myself, when is this going to come to an end? When I see Israeli soldiers humiliating Palestinians, when I see Israeli settlers doing horrible things to Palestinians. I've been working this region for many years. I've been about 50, and I'm very happy to say I'm about 50 for, God knows how long. But it is heartbreaking, Nada, to see that it's not getting any better. It's only getting worse. The crimes that we witness, the things that we need to tolerate, and it's just unbelievable. That is why I ask you the question. When we, extend support to Israel, it has a notion that it's as if the civilians who want to give full support to Israel is giving a license to Israel to kill Palestinians. I can't get over that. That's number one. Number two, for all these years, this killing, this humiliation, this inhumane treatment has collected massive amount of hate. Is there any way to tackle this? Maybe not today, because I know that we are in a funeral house today, and I don't want to shame myself to talk about these things in a funeral house. But this is the heart of it. As much as I would like to extend this, through you, I hope you also hear the civilians' heart who do not wish to harm Israel or Palestinians. But this has to come to an end. How do you think about it as a diplomat? To me, like, if you're a diplomat, you're working on the solution. You prefer diplomatic means over military solutions. How does your mind react to it? Tell us anything that's going to give us some peace.
You mentioned hate. I'll tell you what's hate. Hate is when a 5-6-year-old Palestinian boy or girl go to the first class of school, and in their school books there is a drawing of an Israeli soldier with knives killing him or bullets at him and praising the shaheeds who killed Israeli civilians. This is not just hate, it's incitement. A lot of the terrorists who came from Gaza on Saturday were youth, were youngsters, even minors. They were incited for years. By who? Not by Israel. They were incited by Hamas, by their, their inciters, the people who incite there, whether it's extremists. And I think this is sad. I think this is sad. I really feel,
But is this the root cause of this hate?
Absolutely. When Gaza is controlled by a terror organization, what can you do? I mean, look at it. The Palestinian people should have toppled them down and should have known that every time that Hamas starts a round with Israel, and shoot at Israeli civilians, there are consequences. Of course there will be consequences. Personally, I want peace, of course I want. But at this time, when Hamas has hostages in tunnels in Gaza as we speak, when missiles are being shot at Israel from Lebanon as well, we don't have a confirmed numbers. You know, they mutilated so many bodies that it's very difficult to even recognize some of them. And again, they took dozens of people at least into Gaza. They were talking about a three-digit number.
I read at I-24 News yesterday that Hamas holds about 800 Israeli captives. Could that be true?
No, I don't believe so. I do think it's a high three-digit number, but it's not 800. Again, I cannot confirm because we don't know the exact number. Our authorities are working on identifying who was taken captive. But again, this only shows the cruelty of Hamas. The methods that they use are ISIS-like, but to so many people. The massacre that they did, the shooting of people, you know, and really it's difficult for me just to remember. You know, on Saturday I was in Israel when the attack started. Yes, I was in the city of Rishon LeZion. There was an alarm at around 6 a.m. in the morning. There was no shelter in the building I was, so I ran to the staircase. Yes, I did, and I sat there. After a few seconds, I hear the explosives. We are lucky that we have the Iron Dome system that we developed to, to prevent missiles from landing at our cities, and it did intercept hundreds of missiles, thousands of them, in fact. But many also landed in civil areas, and people got killed and hurt. More than 3,000 Israeli civilians were evacuated to hospital. Some of them are still in critical condition. I think at this point, let's be clear. And this is the message I want to tell to the Turkish people and viewers as we speak. No to terror. Don't support terror. Don't support Hamas. The things they did to civilians, and they continue to do, are unacceptable in no human scale. No human in the world should go through what they did. They came to a small kibbutz in Israel. They killed over 100 people. They slaughtered them on the floors in their houses. The people who locked themselves in a room, they burned their house from outside. They took an 80-year-old into Gaza. She didn't even understand completely what's happening. They took her into Gaza with no mercy. They took children, they took women, people bleeding.
Footages were really very difficult to watch.
Yes.
But I did, which was insane. But it is also important to see those footages to understand the dilemma.
Yeah.
It's really, heartbreaking. The humanity is gone. That's really depressing.
It's gone, right?
Yeah.
Hamas,
Gone.
what they are doing, really, I don't have the words to describe.
Okay, so let's. These are the main topics and the lines that I wanted to talk to you. But as we wrap up, let's bring this to Ankara. Let's bring it to Ankara and Israel relationship. From the first question, I do understand that Israel is not isn't going to talk to Hamas in any way at this time. I don't know whether it will. That's what I gathered. So if Ankara is doing anything in regards of Hamas to rescue the Israeli captives, it's doing it on its own, and so that's one part of it. But as a diplomat, you're also representing the Israeli government today. How do you see, again, as we wrap up, how do you see the Turkish government, handle the situation, and what do you expect Turkey to do in the coming days? This is just starting as far as I understand.
Let's keep the dialogue between Israel and Turkey to diplomatic channels, not to the media, please.
Okay.
At the moment, it's not a time for Israel to talk to Hamas. We are not here to talk at the moment. After what they did, and we just talked and mentioned it, we have to destroy the terror capabilities and the terror infrastructure in the Gaza Strip. Of course, we would like civilians not to get hurt, and we are doing efforts for civilians not to get hurt. Can you show me another army in the world that alerts people before they bomb a terror infrastructure because they are resident living next to it? I don't know any other army, but the IDF do it. They can go from this specific house where there are missiles and bombs before, and we let them know before. This is one thing. To be clear, now is the time to destroy Hamas after what they did to our people. It's not time to talk. Afterwards, we can talk.
Okay, it's fair. Thank you so much for your time and for this candid conversation. This has been really difficult for all of us to talk about it, to witness it. And again, my sincere condolences to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and you coming here and giving the time to me. I just want to say one last thing. I want to personally send my condolences to the families of the Israelis killed and injured by this horrific, unacceptable terror attack.